If you feel like every time you finally work up the courage to poach, you get passed down the line, this is the video for you. In this lesson, I'm gonna break down how I would time a poach effectively so my opponent can't change their mind and I can pick off more volleys in the middle of the court. So let's get started. Now, I am gonna give you a direct answer to that question I just posed, but a lot of people like to think there's an exact time that I can tell everyone watching this video when you should start your poach, and that's just not true. So one thing I've heard is you should poach just after the ball bounces on the other side of the court. But what happens if your partner hits a moon ball versus something a little faster? That timing is different. Every ball your partner hits is gonna be different, and where your opponent takes that ball on the court is gonna be different. So we don't have a set time that we can always rely on. So to find the perfect time for you specifically, we're gonna have to work backwards. So we know that we wanna be right here in this position with our right foot leaning to the middle of the court when the opponent is striking the ball to have an effective poach. So this is the finishing point of where I need to be when the ball is striking their racket. Then I'm just gonna have to work backwards. Where do I start in the court and how athletic and how long am I? If I'm a shorter player, I'm gonna have to leave a little earlier. I'm fortunate enough that I have longer levers, longer arms. I can leave a little later. Also, even though I'm older, I'm still somewhat athletic, so I move quickly. So the two variables are, where am I starting? If I'm starting here, I'm gonna have to leave pretty early to get all the way to this spot. If I start where I start, which is right here in the middle of the court, I don't have to go as far. I also have to judge my own age and athleticism. So at the end of the day, we're gonna leave as late as possible, as long as we can be in this position right here, just as our opponent is striking the ball. Now, obviously, if we're gonna pick off balls and not let people see us moving, we wanna move as late as possible. And one mistake that I see people making when they actually decide to make this move is they come in and there's lots of steps and there's lots of jumping and they're in the air. When I'm making a move, I am much quicker. I'm right here in a quick little pivot. I don't need to be dancing around. I don't need to be jumping. I don't need to be split stepping. I want to minimize the movement and make it as quickly as possible. So my partner hits a ball to my opponent right there. I'm forward, boom, there's my move. Hopefully my racket would actually be in front. But the mistake I see people making is just a lot of dancing and a lot of hopping. And when you're in the air, you can't change directions. So the harsh reality is, if you're slow, you're gonna have to leave earlier. And because you leave earlier, sometimes they are gonna see you. That's the unfortunate truth. So if you're 65 years old right now and you got bad knees, you're gonna get passed down the line some, and that's still okay. Poaching is still a great play. You're just gonna have to bake that into your expectations. If you are a slower player, your adjustment is gonna be to have the courage to make this your starting position. I am much closer to that line than the single sideline. If I wanna get to my spot right here, that's where I'm gonna have to start to make it look the same. If you are starting over here, you are always behind the 8 ball. You are always gonna have to leave early. They are gonna see it and be able to change their mind. Another thing to consider why you're getting passed down the line, yes, some of you are leaving early because you're too far over, but the other thing is that when you're not poaching, you're not doing anything, so you look very calm. The fact that you even have motion on your poach is sending off red flags to your opponent. So when I choose to stay, this is what I look like. Lots of small feet right there, intensity, they can see motion, and I'm closing tight to the net. When I decide to poach, the only difference is at the last second, I make that little pivot. So they're always seeing action. They're always seeing me be aggressive with my body. So nothing is going off. A lot of times you guys are just standing here, watching the ball go, and then you have all this early momentum to your poach, and the red flags and the alarm bells have gone off. So whether you're staying or poaching, always active with your feet, always bringing that intensity. Now, a lot of times you're gonna get passed down the line and it's not because you left too early. It's randomness or you are leaving at the incorrect time. So I've always said on my channel, the best times to poach are early in the match because people are just getting their feet wet and they're gonna return middle or cross court, early in the point for the same exact reason, and then when the score is very close or means something. So say 5-all on a breaker or 4-4 deuce, people are typically not gonna play with a ton of risk. The exact opposite is true for wanting to stay. So if I was up 5-0, 40 love, maybe I'm not poaching because I know my opponent might play a little riskier. Or if it's later in the point and they've already hit 3 or 4 ground strokes, their alarm bells are already going off that something might happen soon, and it's much more like they're going down the line. So just keep track of that, so when you get past line, you have a better indicator whether it's you left early or whether you just poached at the incorrect moment. So I'm actually going to show you a good example of correct timing on the poach, but maybe how poaching at the incorrect moment can get you beat down the line from this year's NCAA tournament. All right, so let's take a look at 2 points here. I want you to watch the girl at the net for Texas on our side of the court. You can see she's very close to that single sideline, so if and when she decides to poach, she's going to have to leave a little bit earlier. She's actually moving to her left. And then right here, she gets beat down the line. Now I want you to watch her partner at the net from Texas on the same side of the court. Let's watch what she does. She closes a little bit, nothing this time, and then we get a poach for a winner. So let's break a couple things down. Why did this player get beat down the line, and why did her partner succeed? There are 2 major differences. Number 1, you can see that she's very close to that single sideline. So I mentioned this before, but she's gonna have to leave earlier. But also watch when she's closing, she's not really doing a whole lot. Her body is very calm, and so it's very clear she's not gonna poach. Right here, she's moving to her left. But now we've waited 3 balls in the rally, and as I mentioned, the longer the rally goes, the more likely it is that someone is gonna go down the line. So she's got a couple things working against her here. Number 1, she's very far from our spot that we drew the line on earlier, which is very close to the center of the court. So she's gonna have to leave a touch early. She also hasn't been moving that much with her body, so that little lean right there is a dead giveaway. And the last thing is she's made that move before the far opponent on the other side of the court has dropped their racket, so they can still change their mind. They probably already wanted to go down the line. So the time was bad and the execution was bad. So now when we watch the next point, you can see her partner. There's a couple major differences here. Let's look at where she is in the court. Now, I would still prefer her to be a touch more to the middle, but she's definitely closer to the middle than her partner was. The other thing is, if you look at the timing of the poach when she's making her move right here, you can see the player on the other side of the net hasn't dropped their racket yet. So the timing is the same and she's giving up more line. So why on earth does this ball not go down the line? It's because people have already made up their mind anyway. So our starting position was better, right? The timing is the same, and she's moving on the second ball of the rally instead of the third or the fourth, which means there's a much better chance this ball is gonna go cross court. So a lot of times people will think they got passed because, oh, they saw me go or whatever. A lot of times it's just the wrong time to go, meaning too late in the rally, or you're starting too close to that single sideline. Now, last thing I'm going to say on the timing of the poach is if you have great starting position near our finishing point, and if you can move quickly without bouncing around, the timing that I have, because I do both of those things, is I try to leave right when my player is about to drop their racket. So when they're here and they're just waiting for a ball, if I move, they can change their mind and go anywhere. But right when they're about to drop the racket, that is when they've committed to their target and they can no longer change their mind. Now, for me, because I'm standing here and I only have to get to this spot, I can do that in 0.3 of a second. So right when I see this drop of the racket, I have time to do that. If I'm farther, I'm gonna have to go before they drop their racket, which means they could change time. So just to show you how difficult it is to change directions once you're about to drop that racket, I'm gonna show you a little clip from today's lesson with one of my players, and I'm gonna tell her before she drops her racket, whether she's gonna go cross court or line, and you're gonna see it's probably gonna be very, very easy for her. Then I'm gonna make cross court the default option, and I'm gonna occasionally switch to down the line, but I'm only gonna tell her right when I think her racket's gonna drop, and I have a feeling she's gonna look a little awkward when she's trying to change her mind. All right, 6-4 hands, cross court to C. Line. Ready?
This is what you were talking about yesterday.
Correct. 6 to C. Or sorry, yeah, cross court to C. Good. Does it make it harder to make the cross court if you know there's a chance I'm going to change it? Yeah, it does. Interesting. Ready? Line. I'm just trying to say it right when you're committed. So like it should look like that. I'm actually impressed you made it, but it's harder. Cross is the default. Line. Good. Now, I'm definitely gonna call it out every time cross or line, and I'm gonna call it a touch earlier for you, okay? See how you do this, ready? Cross. Cross. line, 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 cross. Great ball. That's it. Easier, right?
Yeah.
Ready. Line, cross, line, cross, 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 cross. Beauty. All right, so you want to time your approaches effectively and get more balls, we got to stand closer to the middle of the court. We got to see that ending position where we want to be when our opponent is striking the ball, and we got to work backwards from there. The closer you start to the center, the later you can leave, the less they're going to see you poaching, and the more volley winners you're going to hit.